Hello there, welcome to day two of isolation. My name's Mr. Athrall. Perhaps you watched my video yesterday, which was about persuasive writing. And I gave you a plan for how to do a piece of persuasive writing, which is what my Year 10 students are doing for their piece of work while they're off. So just a little bit of feedback. Lots of you have emailed me that piece of work. So before I talk about what you're going to do today, I'm just going to give you a little bit of feedback on the piece of work that you sent me. Now, the thing that I really liked in people's work is when they were particularly specific. So they gave real, genuine, interesting examples of either kindness or unkindness in the articles that they wrote. Let me give you an example from my own life about that. So if I was writing this article, I think I'd go for kindness, in terms of arguing that the world is a kind place. It's clearly often not always kind, but at times it is kind. So a few weeks ago, I was walking through Lewes, and I heard my name repeatedly shouted. And I kept turning around. I kept hearing someone go, "David Athrall, David Athrall," and I kept sort of turning around and looking for someone that I recognised. And then finally, I caught a glimpse of who the man was who was shouting my name. And I went up to him, confused about why he was shouting my name. And he had my credit card in his hand. And I dropped it as I was walking down the road. And at social inconvenience himself, it was really embarrassing, kind of walking down the road, repeatedly shouting someone's name. Also, he could have just nicked my credit card and attempted to use it, but instead of doing either of those two unkind things, he chose the kind option, which was to keep shouting my name in the hope that he might find me. Which he did, and return my card, which was good, because that saved me from a lot of inconvenience. So the reason I'm telling that story is because if I was writing this article myself, I would include that story and do a lot of build up of that story as well. Talk about the weirdness of hearing my name repeatedly shouted in a public space, and then talk about the kind of excitement of how kind it was that this man was willing to go through social embarrassment in order give me my car back. I use that as an example of why I believe the world to be a potentially kind place. Rather than just talking in kind of general, vague terms about it's kind because people show kindness towards other by giving money to charity, or which clearly is an example of kindness, but more specifics, more personal details, more interesting stories make the writing much more interesting. So in terms of what you did yesterday, that's my biggest bit of feedback, is to make it interesting through the use of personal examples. Now, today, what you are doing is creating a mind map on the staging of The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. So The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime is the play that we read right at the beginning of the year. Some of you got the chance to go and watch a screen version of that a couple of weeks ago. Some of you, we were meant to go yesterday, and that never happened. So this is clearly going to be a little bit easier if you've actually seen it than if you've just read the script. So I'm just going to give a few examples to get you going and thinking about the kind of things that you could include in this mind map. So when you're thinking about what to include, think about moments where it is a bit unusual. So moments where the playwright decides to include things that wouldn't happen in real life. So when we're watching them, they wouldn't happen in quite that way. So I've got a few examples of that. So the first example is when Christopher is reading his mother's letters, and what Simon Stevens decides to do is he has the letters being read by Judy and Siobhan at the same time, and what Christopher is doing is building a train track. And the quote that is used is, "His building becomes frantic." So he's building this train track, and if you've seen it, there's this huge train track that goes sprawling across the whole stage. And he's not got the letters in his hand. He's not reading them, although it is depicting the moment where he read the letters. So the building of the trains is something that he does, but wasn't doing at that moment in time. And so it's an unusual detail, because clearly the writer is playing with what is realistic in this sense. And so the trains are there to represent something. And so the fact that they're becoming more frantic his building of the train tracks is becoming more frantic is meant to be representative of his mind, struggling to cope with the news that his mother is still alive. And the trains have been a thing that he plays with that give him a sense of security and safety. They give him structure. He likes train timetables. He likes order, and trains have got that sense of order that appeal to him. And so he's doing something that gives him a sense of safety, but it's not achieving that entirely because his building is becoming increasingly frantic. It also foreshadows the moment where he's going to get on a train himself. So he's building this train, and the news he's receiving is what's going to send him to his mother. And so the train track that he's building is almost a journey that he's building to his mother. So that's one unusual detail. Then he gets to the train station. There's lots of unusual stuff that happens at the train station. So one of the big things that happens is that everything that he sees is given a verbal line. So, for example, warning, CCTV in operation, Great Western, cold beers and lagers. These are all signs that he is seeing, and they the reason that those signs are given lines. It's very disorientating when you watch it. You get kind of these lines kind of spoken from all over the place, and we see Christopher being really disorientated by that. And it's because being in such a crowded place with so much stimulus is something that he finds very, very difficult. And so that the speaking of these lines is showing him experiencing sensory overload because of his neurodiversity. It's something that he can't cope with, and so those objects and all sorts of things are given lines. There's pages and pages of these things. They show the sensory overload that he's experiencing. So on the mind map that you create, try and include the line that you're referring to and what it shows. So the unusual detail and then what it shows. One more detail that I'll give you is where he starts to hear two people's voices in his head. He hears his father and he hears Siobhan in his head. So Siobhan appears on the stage saying left, right, left, right, left, right, kind of helping in on his journey. And so that unusual detail is there because she is a voice that helps him. She is someone that helps him through his difficulties. And so if it's really relevant that it's her voice that he hears, it's her that she goes to for safety. Clearly this is his internal mind kind of thinking, what shall I do? And when he's struggling to know what to do, he hears Siobhan's voice. She is like a guiding voice for him. And so that unusual detail is meant to show how important she is to him as a character. One last thing that I'll chuck in there as well as a term that you might want to use. So any moment where things are unrealistic in this play, we could call them Brechtian features. So Brecht is this person who kind of created, had the idea for very unrealistic theatre. So theatre before Brecht was staged to be realistic, and so Brecht had these ideas where he challenged what was realistic, and he did lots of things in his plays that are examples of unrealistic things, and we see lots of those things happen in Curious Incident and The Dog in the Night Time. So all these examples that I'm giving you, we could say that they are Brechtian features, and that Simon Stevenson uses these Brechtian features, and then we've got to just say, what's the effect? What's it trying to show us? What's it trying to tell us about Christopher? I hope that's helpful in making your mind map today. Yeah, that's all I've got for today. I'll keep posting videos just to help you with your learning while you're absent from school. See you later.